Economics is often defined as the study of how society allocates scarce resources. And the reason that I like to teach economics in a business school setting is to see how companies can allocate scarce resources. So what we look at is how companies are able to allocate resources amongst employees, and how we determine who gets what, and how we understand where goods are valued and where their best uses lie. If you have a puzzle, then the way in which you solve the puzzle is normally by accumulating as much information as you possibly can, and then you can use some statistical techniques maybe to try and process that information and deliver an answer. I think economics is best approached more as a mystery, and the way you solve a mystery is not necessarily with more information. You solve a mystery by seeking the best possible explanation. So it's a slightly different way of approaching the subject, but I think the most important economic questions are mysteries rather than puzzles. I don't think we should expect economists to make good forecasts. It's incredibly difficult to predict what's going to happen in an economy, not only because our knowledge of the economic models that underpin the economy are flawed, but also because any economic prediction rests on understanding how policymakers are going to respond to conditions, and also how the general public are going to respond to conditions. So trying to package together all of those different things to be able to make an economic forecast is very difficult, and I think that's why economists have such a bad track record of making forecasts. Well, obviously I'm from the UK, so Brexit's a very important issue for the UK economy. But I think globally the big issue at the moment is probably going to be the US trade war with China. Depending on how that goes, that's going to have a major impact on not only the situation between the US and China, but it has very big knock-on effects for the global economy as a whole. So I think everybody will be looking to see how that relates, and that will probably be driving things over certainly the next year or so. I think the first time I became really interested in economics was when I went on a school trip to Moscow in the early 1990s, and I witnessed firsthand hyperinflation, and seeing how in some shops there were no food on the shelves, and I compared that with the country that I grew up in, and it made me realise that the economic system that a country adopts is obviously very important. So I wanted to understand the causes of hyperinflation and why it was that some countries seemed to be solving their economic problems better than others. And I think all of the economics that I've studied since then has been trying to pursue that journey. Probably my fondest memory teaching at Cutruli Business School was when I was doing an MBA generation in Ljubljana. And the day before the first class, I happened to bump into a group of students in the pub, and they didn't know that I was the professor, so I pretended that I was one of the students. And we had a very enjoyable evening, and we stayed up until the early hours of the morning. And then the next day, when we all arrived in the lecture room, and they thought that I was one of the students, it was very funny when I stood up from my chair and stood at the front of the room, and they realised that I was in fact the professor. I think during the programs there's obviously a lot of knowledge and information that the professors try to convey to the participants, but in any module the most amount of knowledge is passed on through the participants themselves. And so I think the importance of the Alumni Club is to ensure that as people's careers progress and as their knowledge develops and as their experiences grow, that they continue to tap into that network that they've developed, and they get all of that information. I'd also say as well that my main advice for Cutruli alumni is to continue pursuing opportunities to understand the insights from their modules, understand what constitutes value creation, and to go searching for those opportunities. There's a lot of problems in the world right now, and what the world needs more than ever is business leaders to stand up and to create value and to create wealth.